First contact in the wasteland. The crimson dust of Novus 7 swirled around Marcus Chen's boots as he made his way through the wreckage-strewn valley. The setting of the system's twin suns cast long shadows across the battlefield's remains, a grim reminder of the war that had ravaged this frontier world. As a salvage specialist, Marcus had grown accustomed to the eerie silence that followed combat, but something felt different today. His scanner chirped softly, detecting traces of exotic metals beneath a twisted hull of what had once been a combat vessel. The technology here could feed him for months, if he could get it back to the outpost. Marcus adjusted his environment suit's filters and began clearing debris, his movements precise and practiced. The sound came without warning, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. Marcus froze, his hand instinctively moving to the pulse rifle slung across his back. In his 5 years of salvage work, he'd learned that anything unusual usually meant trouble. The hum grew stronger, and then he saw it, a shimmer of movement among the wreckage. Something was alive out there, something big. Marcus crouched behind a fallen support beam, his breath steady as he watched a figure emerge from the shadows. She stood at least 8 feet tall, her armor a masterpiece of bioengineered plates that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. But what caught Marcus's attention was the way she moved. Despite her impressive size, each step spoke of lethal grace. This was no ordinary soldier. This was someone of significance. The alien warrior stumbled, one hand pressed against her side where the armor had been breached. A viscous fluid the color of midnight dripped between her fingers. She was wounded badly. Marcus had heard stories about the Var Sharan elite warriors, how they would rather die than accept help from what they considered lesser species. Yet, as he watched her struggle to remain upright, something inside him rebelled against the idea of simply walking away. "You might want to get that looked at," he called out, rising slowly from his position with his hands clearly visible. The warrior's head snapped toward him, 4 golden eyes narrowing in what might have been surprise or contempt. "Human," she growled, the translation matrix in his suit converting her complex harmonics into something he could understand. "You would do well to leave this place." Her voice carried authority even now, though he could see her strength failing. Marcus took a careful step forward. "Probably, but I've never been good at doing what I should." He gestured to her wound. "That looks like a plasma burn. I've got medical supplies in my rover, about half a click from here." The warrior straightened, her massive frame towering over him. "You dare offer aid to War Master Kavera of the Var Sharan fleet? Do you mock me, human?" "No mockery," Marcus replied calmly. "Just an offer. Take it or don't. But from where I'm standing, pride won't stop that bleeding." Kavera studied him for a long moment, her golden eyes seeming to peer straight into his soul. Then, without warning, her legs buckled. Marcus moved without thinking, diving forward to catch her before she hit the ground. The impact nearly drove him to his knees. She was even heavier than she looked. "Your name," she demanded, even as she leaned against him. "Marcus Chen." "Marcus Chen," she repeated, the syllable strange in her mouth. "Know that if this is treachery, my last act will be to ensure your death is memorable." He couldn't help but laugh. "Noted. Now, can we focus on keeping it from being your last act at all?" The journey to his rover was slow and tense. Kavera refused to be carried, though she accepted his shoulder for support. Every few steps, she would scan their surroundings, her warrior's instincts clearly undiminished by her injury. Marcus's rover was more than just a vehicle. It was his home, workshop, and survival shelter all in one. The reinforced hull bore the scars of countless encounters with the harsh environment of Novus 7, but the interior was clean and well organized. "It's not exactly a medical bay," he said as he helped her inside, "but it'll do." He activated the decontamination field and began gathering supplies. "I've treated plasma burns before, though never on someone quite like you." Kavera settled onto the medical cot, her armor automatically adjusting to allow access to her wound. "Your knowledge of our physiology." Limited, he admitted, but some things are universal. Blood loss, infection, tissue damage. The principles are the same. He held up a scanner. May I? She nodded once, regally, as if granting him a great honor. The scanner's readout confirmed his suspicions. The wound was serious but treatable. The next few hours were spent in focused work, with Kivera remaining stoically silent even during the most painful procedures. As Marcus applied the final layer of synthetic skin, he noticed her watching him with an unreadable expression. "Why?" she asked simply. He considered the question as he packed away his medical supplies. "Because out here, we're all just trying to survive. Species, rank, politics, none of that matters much when you're bleeding out in the dust." "You are unusual for a human," Kivera observed. "Our intelligence suggests your kind are driven primarily by fear and greed." "Maybe you need better intelligence," Marcus replied with a slight smile. "Or maybe we're all more complicated than our reports suggest." Kivera's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Perhaps. Rest assured, Marcus Chen, this debt will not go unacknowledged." As the last light of the twin suns faded outside, Marcus realized his simple salvage run had just become something far more complex. In saving the life of a Var Sharan Warmaster, he had inadvertently stepped onto a much larger stage, one where the consequences would reach far beyond this dusty battlefield on Novus 7. "Get some rest," he told her, dimming the rover's interior lights. "Tomorrow, we can figure out what comes next." Kivera's golden eyes gleamed in the darkness. "Indeed we shall, Marcus Chen, indeed we shall. Honor among stars." Dawn broke over Novus 7 with its characteristic double shadows, casting strange patterns through the rover's reinforced windows. Marcus awoke to find Kivera already alert, her golden eyes fixed on the data terminal he'd left running the previous night. She'd managed to interface with it somehow, scrolling through information with practiced efficiency. "Your security protocols are impressive for civilian technology," she commented without looking away from the screen. "Though your encryption could use improvement." Marcus sat up, running a hand through his hair. "Most people say good morning. Most people are not Var Sharan warriors," Kivera replied, but there was a hint of something almost like humor in her harmonics. "Your vessel has been scanning the surrounding area all night. There are 3 separate groups converging on our position." That got Marcus's attention. He moved to the control console, bringing up the tactical display. Sure enough, multiple heat signatures were moving through the valley. Following search patterns he recognized all too well. "Scavengers," he muttered. "But they're too organized. These aren't independent operators." "No," Kivera agreed, her expression darkening. "Those are Blackwater Guild signatures. They're hunting me." Marcus had heard of the Blackwater Guild. Mercenaries who took contracts from anyone with enough credits, no questions asked. Their presence here meant someone very powerful wanted Kivera found. "Friends of yours?" "Hardly." Kivera's mandibles clicked in irritation. "The attack that wounded me was no random encounter. Someone knew I would be investigating this sector." She turned to face him fully. "You should leave now, Marcus Chen. You've fulfilled any moral obligation by tending to my wounds. What comes next is not your concern." Marcus checked his weapons and supplies, making quick mental calculations. "You're right, it's not my concern. But I'm making it my concern." He met her gaze steadily. "Unless you're planning to throw me out of my own rover." Kivera studied him for a long moment. "You continue to confound expectations. Very well. But know this. By choosing to stand with me, you make yourself a target of forces you may not fully comprehend." "Story of my life," Marcus replied with a grim smile. "Now want to tell me what's really going on here?" Over the next hour, as they prepared the rover for possible combat, Kivera explained. She had been investigating a series of unusual energy signatures in this sector. Signatures that suggested someone was testing weapons that violated multiple interstellar treaties. Her preliminary findings had pointed to collaboration between rogue elements within both human and Var-Sharan military structures. A conspiracy spanning both our species, Marcus mused as he checked the rover's defense systems. No wonder someone wants you silenced. The Var-Sharan Imperium prides itself on honor and discipline, Kivera said, her voice tight with controlled anger. The thought that some of our own would collaborate with criminals to develop forbidden weapons, it is beyond shameful. Greed and power are universal motivators, Marcus observed, but so are justice and integrity. He pulled up a topographical map of the area. There's an old mining complex about 20 kilometers north. The mineral deposits in the rock interfere with scanning equipment. We might be able to lose our pursuers in there. Kivera's wound had healed remarkably overnight, though she still moved with careful precision. You know this territory well. 5 years of salvage work teaches you every bolt hole and hiding spot. Marcus initiated the rover's startup sequence. Plus, I may have done some unofficial business in that complex before. Smuggling. Kivera's tone was more amused than judgmental. I prefer unauthorized resource reallocation. Marcus grinned. Hold on, this might get rough. The rover burst into motion, its enhanced suspension system compensating for the rough terrain as Marcus guided it through the wreckage-strewn battlefield. Behind them, alarm signals blared as their pursuers detected their movement. 3 vehicles in pursuit, Kivera reported, her fingers dancing over the tactical display. Heavy weapons mounted on all of them. They're not trying to be subtle anymore. The first shots came moments later, plasma bolts lighting up the morning sky. Marcus threw the rover into a series of evasive maneuvers, using the terrain to their advantage. Kivera quickly familiarized herself with the weapon systems, returning fire with remarkable accuracy. Your targeting algorithms are surprisingly sophisticated, she commented as one of their pursuers erupted in flames. Custom modifications, Marcus replied, taking them through a narrow gap between 2 crashed ships. Amazing what you can learn when salvaging military hardware. They worked together with unexpected synergy, Marcus's intimate knowledge of the terrain complementing Kivera's tactical expertise. When they finally reached the mining complex, they had lost one pursuer to Kivera's shooting, and another to a cleverly laid trap involving unstable wreckage. Inside the abandoned mine, Marcus guided the rover through a maze of tunnels he knew by heart. We should be safe here for a while. The mineral deposits create natural interference. They won't be able to track us easily. Kivera nodded approvingly. You handle yourself well in combat for a civilian. Your species continues to surprise me. We're full of surprises, Marcus agreed, bringing the rover to a stop in a concealed chamber he used before. Now, want to help me set up some surprises of our own for when they eventually find us. Over the next several hours, they fortified their position, combining Marcus's practical experience with Kivera's military training. As they worked, they talked. Kivera sharing stories of her campaigns across the stars, Marcus telling tales of survival on the frontier. Your path to becoming a salvage specialist, Kivera said as they finished setting the last trap. It was not your first choice. Marcus paused, old memories surfacing. I was a colonial Marine, saw enough of war to last several lifetimes. Out here, at least I'm not killing anyone. Usually just picking up the pieces after others do the killing. Yet you fight well, and with honor, Kivera observed. Perhaps there is wisdom in choosing when to fight, rather than simply fighting because one can. Their conversation was interrupted by distant echoes. Their pursuers had found the mine entrance. Marcus checked their defenses one last time, ready to show them why it's a bad idea to corner a human and a Var-Sharan warrior. Kivera's mandibles spread in what Marcus was learning to recognize as a smile. Indeed, Marcus Chen. Let us teach them the price of their dishonor. As they prepared for battle, Marcus realized something had changed between them. What had started as an act of impromptu mercy had evolved into something else, a partnership forged in shared danger and mutual respect. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Warriors united. The mining complex's emergency lights cast a dim red glow across the chamber as Marcus and Kevera prepared for their counterattack. The distant sounds of their pursuers echoing through the tunnels had grown closer, but neither warrior showed signs of concern. Instead, they moved with practiced precision, checking weapons and reviewing their plan one final time. "Your trap placement is creative," Kevera observed, studying the holographic map they'd created of the tunnel system. "We don't typically employ such indirect tactics in Var-Sharan warfare." Marcus finished loading the last of his modified plasma charges. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make sure it happens on your terms, not theirs. He gestured to the tunnel network. They're expecting to find a wounded Var-Sharan and a scared salvage worker. Let's show them how wrong they are. The first explosion rocked the complex exactly as planned. Marcus had rigged several of his salvaged mining charges to collapse specific tunnels, forcing their pursuers down predetermined paths. Kevera's enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of confusion and anger as their enemies found their options suddenly limited. "They're splitting up," she reported, her golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. "3 groups, just as we anticipated." Marcus nodded, shouldering his rifle, ready to show them some Var-Sharan hospitality. Kevera's mandibles clicked in what he now recognized as anticipation. "Lead the way, Marcus Chen." They moved through the tunnels like shadows, their movements synchronized after hours of planning. The first group of mercenaries never saw them coming. Marcus's knowledge of the complex's ventilation system allowed them to approach from above, while Kevera's strength let her drop down among them with devastating effect. "Your combat style is unusual for a human," Kevera commented as they regrouped, leaving unconscious mercenaries bound behind them. "You combine military training with something else. 5 years of survival on the frontier teaches you to use everything at your disposal," Marcus replied, checking his scanner. "Second group is approaching the processing chamber. Shall we?" The second encounter proved more challenging. These mercenaries were better prepared, equipped with thermal scanners that pierced the mineral interference. But they weren't prepared for the combination of Marcus's improvised tech and Kevera's tactical brilliance. "Overload the processing unit's cooling system," Kevera suggested as they took cover behind ancient machinery. "The thermal bloom will blind their sensors." Marcus grinned, already accessing the old control systems. "See, now you're thinking like a salvage specialist." The resulting steam burst created chaos among the mercenaries, allowing Kevera to close in while Marcus provided covering fire. Her movements were poetry in motion, each strike precise and controlled despite her recent injury. Marcus found himself watching in admiration as she disarmed 3 opponents in rapid succession. "Your wound seems to have healed well," he observed as they secured the second group. "Var-Sharan biology is highly adaptable," she replied. "Though your medical treatment was surprisingly competent." The final group proved to be the most dangerous. Led by a scared veteran whose armor bore the marks of countless battles, they approached with professional caution, avoiding the obvious traps. "That's Raven," Marcus whispered as they observed from concealment. "Ex-military, turned mercenary. She's smarter than the others." Kevera studied their opponent with professional interest. "You know her?" "Ran into her once on a salvage operation. Nearly didn't walk away from that one." Marcus checked his ammunition. "She won't fall for simple tricks." "Then perhaps," Kevera suggested, "it is time for something not simple." Their final confrontation took place in the complex's main chamber, where massive mining machines stood like silent sentinels. Raven's team had established defensive positions, clearly expecting an attack. "Surrender now," Raven's voice echoed through the chamber. "We only want the Var-Sharan. Walk away, Chen, and you can keep your salvage operation running." Marcus shared a look with Kevera, a silent understanding passing between them. Then he called back, "Counter-offer. You walk away now, tell your employers you couldn't find us, and we don't have to find out if your combat insurance is paid up." The firefight that followed was intense but brief. Marcus and Kavera moved like they'd fought together for years, not days. His disruption charges complemented her direct attacks, while her strength and speed gave him opportunities to outflank their opponents. When it was over, Raven lay unconscious with the others, and Marcus was treating a minor plasma burn on his arm, while Kavera secured their prisoners. "Your employers?" Kavera demanded of Raven once she regained consciousness. "Who are they?" The mercenary leader laughed bitterly. "Kill me if you want. I don't break contracts." "We're not going to kill you," Marcus said, finishing with his arm. "We're going to hire you." Both Raven and Kavera turned to stare at him. "Explain," Kavera demanded. "Someone powerful enough to hire the Blackwater Guild wants to keep their weapons research secret," Marcus said. "They'll expect you to report back. So report back. Tell them exactly what we want them to hear." Understanding dawned in Raven's eyes. "You want to feed them false information." "Better," Kavera interjected, catching Marcus's plan. "We want them to believe they've successfully manipulated events to their advantage." Over the next hour, they laid out their proposal to Raven. She would report that Kavera had been killed in the confrontation, while Marcus had fled. This would give them the freedom to move against the conspiracy without being hunted. "Your species continues to surprise me," Kavera said later, as they watched Raven's team depart. "This deception, it is not how Varsharan warriors typically operate. Sometimes the best way to honor warrior traditions is to know when to set them aside," Marcus replied. "Ready to go hunting?" Kavera's expression turned predatory. "Indeed. But first, Marcus Chen, you will teach me more about these improvised tactics of yours, and I shall teach you proper Varsharan combat techniques. If we are to fight together, we should each know the other's strengths." Marcus nodded, understanding the honor being offered. "Deal. Though I should warn you, some of my tactics might offend your warrior sensibilities." "Perhaps," Kavera agreed, "but effectiveness deserves respect, regardless of form. Now show me how you created those disruption charges." As they began their training session, Marcus reflected on how far they'd come from that first meeting in the battlefield. They were no longer just survivors thrown together by circumstance. They were partners, warriors united against a common enemy. And somewhere out there, their real opponents were about to learn just how dangerous such a partnership could be. The hidden threat. The orbital station Lambda 7 hung like a tarnished jewel above Novus 7, its deteriorating outer hull belying the bustling black market activity within. Marcus guided their newly acquired stealth shuttle through the debris field surrounding the station, while Kavera monitored the sensor feeds. "Raven's information appears accurate," she noted, scanning the encrypted transmission logs they'd intercepted. "Regular supply shipments, heavily guarded, all registered under different shell corporations." Marcus adjusted their approach vector, using the debris for cover. Amazing what people will tell you when they think you're dead. The deception they'd orchestrated had worked perfectly. Reports of Kavera's demise had spread quickly through mercenary channels, allowing them to move freely while gathering intelligence. The past week had transformed them both. Kavera had adapted to human guerrilla tactics with remarkable speed, while Marcus had absorbed enough Varsharan combat techniques to surprise even his warrior companion. They'd become something unique, neither fully human nor Varsharan in their methods, but devastatingly effective. Registration codes transmitted, Marcus announced as they approached the station's secondary dock. "Now we'll see if your slicing of the station's security systems worked." The docking clamps engaged with a gentle thud, and green lights flashed across the console. Kavera's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Never doubt Varsharan technical expertise, Marcus Chen." They moved through the station's service corridors like ghosts, their movements synchronized after hours of practice. Kavera's enhanced strength allowed her to easily open maintenance hatches that would normally require power tools, while Marcus's experience with station systems let them bypass security checkpoints undetected. Their target was the station's data core, specifically financial records that might reveal who was funding the illegal weapons research. But as they approached their objective, something felt off to Marcus. "It's too quiet," he whispered, checking his scanner again. "A facility this important should have more security." Kivera nodded, her golden eyes scanning their surroundings. "They are here, waiting." Her head tilted slightly. Movement above us. And behind. They were ready when the attack came. Armored figures dropped from concealed hatches in the ceiling, while others burst through side panels. But their attackers had prepared for either human or Var-Sharan tactics, not the hybrid fighting style Marcus and Kivera had developed. Marcus's disruptor charges created chaos in the enemy's formation, while Kivera's strength and speed turned their tight quarters from a disadvantage into a deadly trap for their opponents. They fought back to back, each covering the other's blind spots with practiced ease. "These are not mere mercenaries," Kivera observed as she disabled another attacker. "Their training is too coordinated." Marcus ducked under a plasma burst, returning fire with precise shots. Special forces, but whose? The answer came moments later when one of their attackers' helmets was damaged, revealing distinctive facial tattoos. Kivera's reaction was immediate and visceral. "Crimson Talon operatives," she snarled. "Elite assassins sworn to the High Command itself." She knocked aside another attacker with controlled fury. "This conspiracy reaches higher than we imagined." They fought their way to a defensible position, using maintenance equipment as cover. Marcus quickly accessed a nearby terminal, his fingers flying over the interface. "Kivera, I'm finding something worse than financial records. These weapons they're developing, they're not just illegal. They're designed specifically to target Var-Sharan biology." Kivera's expression darkened. "Explain." "Some kind of engineered bioweapon," Marcus said, downloading data as quickly as he could. "But the research, it's being conducted by both human and Var-Sharan scientists. This isn't just corruption, it's treason against both our species." A new voice cut through the chaos of battle. "Very good, Marcus Chen. Though I'd have expected nothing less from someone with your background." The fighting stopped as a figure emerged from the shadows. He wore the uniform of a human admiral, but the insignia was unfamiliar. Beside him stood a Var-Sharan warrior whose armor bore markings of the highest military rank. "General Zirak," Kivera breathed, recognition and rage warring in her voice. "My own mentor." "The old order is dying, Kivera," the Var-Sharan general rumbled. "The Imperium clings to outdated notions of honor, while the humans expand ever outward. Change is inevitable." "So you create weapons of mass destruction?" Marcus challenged, keeping his rifle trained on the admiral. "Start a war that could devastate both our species." The admiral smiled coldly. "Not destruction, Mr. Chen. Control. Imagine weapons that could target specific genetic markers. The ability to neutralize entire populations without damaging infrastructure. Perfect tools for maintaining order in an increasingly chaotic galaxy. You believe this will prevent war?" Kivera's voice was thick with disgust. "You will start one that will consume worlds. Unless," the admiral suggested, "you both join us. Think of what we could accomplish together. Your skills, your unique partnership, they could help shape the future of both our species." Marcus glanced at Kivera, seeing in her eyes the same resolve he felt. "Counter-offer," he said. "Surrender now, and maybe we don't send the evidence we've already transmitted to every major news network in both our territories." The admiral's smile vanished. "You're bluffing. Our communications are blocked." "Are they?" Marcus grinned. "You should really pay more attention to what salvage operators pick up in their work, like obsolete emergency broadcast systems that no one bothers to monitor anymore." Alarms began blaring throughout the station. The admiral's composure cracked as reports flooded in. Their secure channels had been compromised. Their data was being broadcast across multiple systems. "Kill them," General Zirak roared. "Kill them now." What followed was chaos. Marcus and Kivera fought with everything they had, their movements perfectly synchronized. But they were badly outnumbered, and even their combined skills might not be enough. Then Marcus saw it, the station's power core access panel. He caught Kivera's eye and made a subtle gesture they'd practiced. She understood immediately. "Your honor dies here, General," Kivera declared, drawing all attention to her as Marcus worked. "Along with your schemes." The station's lights flickered as Marcus's override commands took effect. Emergency bulkheads began slamming shut, separating their opponents and creating chaos in their ranks. In the confusion, Marcus and Kivera made their move. They fought their way back to their shuttle, sealing bulkheads behind them. As they escaped, the station's computer systems began a cascading failure that would expose every secret hidden in its databases. "They'll try to discredit the evidence," Marcus said as they accelerated away from the station. "Make it look like a fabrication." "They will fail," Kivera stated with certainty. "Because we will not stop until the truth is known." She turned to face him fully. "But Marcus Chen, you should know, those who betrayed my people will send others after us. There will be no safe haven." Marcus checked their course, plotting a jump to deep space. "Good thing we work well together then." He met her golden eyes. "Partners." Kivera's mandibles spread in what he now recognized as a warm smile. "Partners. Now shall we plan our next move? I believe it's time we took this fight directly to our enemies." As their ship disappeared into hyperspace, Marcus reflected that this wasn't how he'd expected his salvage operation to turn out, but facing impossible odds alongside a Varsharan warrior. Somehow, that felt exactly right. Battle for two worlds. The research facility on Europa hung suspended in the ice, its reinforced walls keeping the crushing pressure of the frozen ocean at bay. Through the shuttle's viewport, Marcus studied the structure's defense systems with a practiced eye, while Kivera reviewed their intelligence. "Raven's last transmission confirms it," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "This is their primary weapons laboratory. The bioweapon is nearly ready for deployment." The past month had been a relentless chase across the galaxy. Every step ahead of their pursuers, they'd gathered allies, exposed corruption, and slowly pieced together the conspiracy's full scope. Now, finally, they had found its heart. "Security looks impressive," Marcus noted, highlighting key points on the tactical display. "Automated defense turrets, shield generators, and at least 2 squadrons of patrol ships. They're expecting trouble." "Good." Kivera's mandibles clicked in anticipation. They should be prepared to meet their end with proper opposition. Their own small fleet hung back in the shadows of Jupiter's massive bulk, a motley collection of ships crewed by those they'd convinced to join their cause. Former mercenaries who'd turned against their employers once they learned the truth. Sharan warriors who still believed in honor. Human colonists who refused to let their worlds become testing grounds for weapons of mass destruction. "All teams report ready," Marcus announced, checking the encrypted communications. "Raven's group is in position to disable the shield generators. The Varsharan cruiser Shadow of Honor will provide cover fire. All we need to do is get inside and reach the central laboratory." Kivera adjusted her armor, newly forged pieces combining the best of both human and Varsharan technology. "You realize, Marcus Chen, that the chances of both of us surviving this mission are minimal. When has that ever stopped us?" He checked his weapons one final time. "Besides, I seem to remember someone telling me that a warrior's death should have meaning." "You remember my teachings well." She placed a hand on his shoulder, the gesture both warriors salute and something more personal. "It has been an honor to fight beside you." The battle began with precision strikes against the facility's outer defenses. Raven's teams, using tactics they'd learned from Marcus, created chaos in the security systems. The Shadow of Honor's weapons blazed through the void, keeping the patrol ships occupied. Marcus and Kivera's shuttle slipped through the chaos, using the confusion to approach a maintenance airlock. Years of salvage work had taught Marcus every weakness in standard human construction, while Kivera's strength made short work of the reinforced doors. Inside, they encountered heavy resistance. The facility's security forces were a mix of human and Var-Sharan troops, all elite soldiers loyal to the conspiracy. But none of them were prepared for the unique fighting style Marcus and Kevera had developed. They moved through the facility like a force of nature. Marcus's improvised devices disrupted communications and security systems, while Kevera's martial prowess turned tight corridors into killing grounds. They fought with the seamless coordination that came from absolute trust in each other's abilities. "The laboratory is 2 levels down," Marcus called out as they secured another section. "But something's wrong. These troops, they're fighting too desperately." Kevera nodded grimly. "They are buying time." Her golden eyes narrowed. "The weapon, they mean to use it now." They doubled their pace, fighting through increasingly fierce resistance. The facility's internal security recordings, which Marcus had hacked into, showed frantic activity in the central lab. Scientists were preparing something, working with terrifying urgency. When they finally breached the laboratory's outer doors, they found Admiral Chen, Marcus's own father, waiting with General Zirak and a team of scientists. "Hello, son," the Admiral said calmly, standing before a massive containment chamber filled with a swirling, opalescent gas. "I had hoped you'd see reason, but I suppose that was too much to expect from Sarah's boy." Marcus's grip on his rifle tightened at the mention of his mother. "Is that why you had her ship destroyed when she discovered your weapons program?" "To protect the greater good." "Your mother was a brilliant scientist," the Admiral replied. "But like you, she couldn't see the bigger picture. This weapon isn't just about control, it's about preventing war. When both sides know we can shut down their armies with a single strike, they'll be forced to maintain peace." "You speak of peace," Kevera snarled, "while preparing for genocide. You dishonor everything both our peoples stand for." General Zirak stepped forward. "The old ways are dead, Kevera. Evolution demands adaptation. This is the next step for both our species." "No," Marcus said firmly. "This ends here." The fighting that followed was brutal and personal. Kevera engaged her former mentor in a duel that shook the laboratory's foundations, while Marcus faced off against his father's security team. The scientists scrambled to complete their work, rushing to activate the weapon. Marcus saw the moment everything changed. One of the scientists, rushing to finish the sequence, made a critical error. The containment chamber's readings began to spike dangerously. "It's destabilizing," Marcus shouted. "The whole facility is going to blow." The Admiral's composure finally cracked. "Override it. Shut it down." "We can't." The lead scientist's voice was panicked. "The reaction is self-sustaining." Kevera, even locked in combat with Zirak, grasped the situation instantly. Marcus. The ice. He understood immediately. The facility's position in Europa's frozen ocean could either be their doom or their salvation. Racing to a control terminal, Marcus began overriding safety protocols, while Kevera kept their enemies at bay. "What are you doing?" the Admiral demanded. "Saving everyone I can," Marcus replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "Even you, though you don't deserve it." The facility's outer walls began to groan as Marcus redirected power from the structural integrity fields. Freezing water started seeping through microscopic cracks, turning to steam where it touched the overheating containment chamber. "Evacuate," Marcus shouted over the facility's communications. "Everyone out, now. And Father, I'm sorry it came to this." They fought their way back through the facility, helping evacuate everyone they could, friend and foe alike. Behind them, the weapons containment chamber was engulfed by Europa's ocean, the extreme cold causing a reaction that would destroy the research but prevent the catastrophic release they feared. As their shuttle escaped the collapsing facility, Kevera touched Marcus's arm gently. "Your father escaped with the first group," Marcus replied, his voice tight, "along with Zirak and most of the scientists. But their weapon is destroyed, and we have enough evidence to expose everything." Kivera nodded solemnly. The battle is won, but the war for truth has only begun. Our enemies will try to bury this, to discredit us. Let them try. Marcus set course for their rendezvous point. We've got something they don't. And what is that, Marcus Chen? He smiled grimly. Each other, and a whole lot of people who now know the truth. He glanced at the tactical display, showing their allied ships regrouping, ready to show both our species a better way forward. Kivera's mandibles spread in a warrior's smile. Always, my friend. Always. Legacy of unity. The great hall of the Var-Sharon High Council chamber stretched toward a vaulted ceiling adorned with the battle honors of 1,000 generations. Marcus stood before the assembled council members, acutely aware of how unusual it was for a human to be granted this honor. Beside him, Kivera's presence was steady and reassuring, her warrior's stance proud despite the controversy their actions had sparked. 3 months had passed since the battle at Europa. 3 months of political upheaval, public outrage, and desperate attempts by the conspiracy's remnants to discredit them. But the truth, once revealed, had proven impossible to contain. The evidence you have presented is disturbing, High Counselor Vertak announced, his aged mandibles clicking slowly. The involvement of high-ranking members of both our militaries in this plot threatens the very foundation of our peace. With respect, High Counselor, Kivera responded, it also presents an opportunity. The conspiracy sought to drive our peoples apart through fear and weapons of mass destruction. Instead, their actions have shown how alike we truly are, and how we can work together. Marcus stepped forward. Both humans and Var-Sharon chose to stand against this threat. Not just Kivera and myself, but countless others who risked everything to expose the truth. That's the real story here, not the betrayal of a few, but the honor of many. The chamber erupted in discussion, the council members' harmonics filling the air with complex emotions. Marcus had learned enough of Var-Sharon culture by now to recognize the mix of outrage, pride, and thoughtful consideration in their tones. A new voice cut through the chaos, sharp, authoritative, but aged. Let them speak further. Marcus turned to see his father being led into the chamber, shackled but still carrying himself with military bearing. Behind him came General Zirak, similarly bound. Both had been captured in the weeks following Europa, their networks of influence crumbling as more evidence came to light. You wish to speak, Admiral Chen? Vertak inquired. The admiral looked at his son, his expression complex. I thought I was protecting humanity, creating a weapon that would ensure peace through strength. But watching my son work alongside Kivera, seeing what they accomplished together, I realized I was wrong. The future isn't about domination. It's about this, different species finding ways to understand each other, to become stronger together. Zirak's mandibles clicked in bitter amusement. You grow soft, old friend. But perhaps there is wisdom in accepting change that comes naturally, rather than trying to force it through violence. The High Council deliberated for hours. Finally, Vertak rose to deliver their judgment. The conspirators would face justice in both human and Var-Sharon courts. But more importantly, the Council had reached a historic decision. Your actions, Vertak announced, have demonstrated the potential that exists when our peoples truly cooperate. Therefore, we propose the creation of a new joint task force, one dedicated to promoting understanding and handling threats that affect both our species. Kivera, Marcus Chen, we ask that you lead this initiative. Marcus glanced at Kivera, seeing in her golden eyes the same mix of surprise and consideration he felt. We would be honored, he replied carefully, but we have conditions. The council chamber grew very still. It was almost unheard of to place conditions on such an honor, but Kivera stepped forward, supporting her partner. This task force must be independent, she declared, free to investigate corruption and threats wherever they appear, regardless of species or rank, and it must be open to all who prove themselves worthy, human, Var-Sharon, or others we may encounter in our journey among the stars. Vertak studied them both for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. A deep, resonant sound rarely heard in the council chamber. "You see," he addressed his fellow council members. "Already they think as one, challenging our preconceptions. Very well. Your conditions are accepted." Later, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the Var-Sharan capital city, Marcus and Kavera watched the twin suns set behind the crystalline spires. "So," Marcus said, ready to build something new. Kavera's mandibles shifted in what he now recognized as her most genuine smile. "We already have, Marcus Chen. But yes, I look forward to continuing our partnership in this new form." Speaking of partnership, Marcus turned to face her fully. "There's an old human tradition called blood brothers, a way of declaring someone family despite not being related by birth. I was wondering if you'd be interested in something similar, but combining both our culture's traditions." Kavera's golden eyes widened slightly. "You wish to undergo the Var-Sharan warrior's bond. It is not done lightly, and has never been attempted with a human." "Then we'll be the first," Marcus said simply, "unless you think I haven't earned the right." "You have earned far more than the right," she replied solemnly. "You have earned my trust, my respect, and my friendship. The bond would be an honor." As the last light faded from the sky, they performed the ancient ritual, modified to accommodate their different biologies, but maintaining its essential meaning. Human and Var-Sharan, warrior and salvager, now formally bound as family. "The conspiracy wanted to keep our peoples apart through fear," Marcus observed as they completed the ceremony. "Instead, they'd brought us together in ways they never imagined." Indeed, Kavera placed a hand on his shoulder. "And this is only the beginning. There are more battles to fight, more mysteries to solve, more bridges to build between our peoples." "Wouldn't have it any other way," Marcus grinned. "Partner." As night fell over the Var-Sharan capital, news of their appointment and the new task force spread across both human and Var-Sharan space. Some welcomed it as a sign of progress. Others feared change. But none could deny the truth their partnership had revealed, that the strongest bonds are forged not in fear or dominance, but in mutual respect, understanding, and the willingness to stand together against any challenge. The story of the human salvager and the Var-Sharan warrior would be told and retold, growing with each telling. But its core truth remained constant, that in the vast expanse of space, the greatest discoveries are not the technologies we find or the weapons we build, but the connections we forge with those who are different from ourselves. Marcus and Kavera's legacy would not be measured in battles won or conspiracies exposed, but in the paths they opened for others to follow. Their partnership became a symbol of what was possible when fear gave way to understanding, when ancient prejudices yielded to new possibilities. And somewhere in the galaxy, a new chapter was beginning. One where humans and Var-Sharans worked side by side, facing whatever challenges awaited them together.